Oh, hey, come in. I was just about to start cooking. Welcome in, y'all. Today we're gonna make some toast to ring in the new year. For everyone that waited for this, thank you for your patience. I meant to have this out a bit ago, but life comes at you fast. Between diagnosis, appointments, meetings with immigration, and teeth issues culminating in an extraction, I was really stretched thin. I'm doing a lot better now, though, and I'm excited to be doing more of what I love. On to the New Year's toasts. I'd like to start with a toast to the future. Here's to liberation for all oppressed groups and a more equitable life for us all. Egg in a hole is essentially a fried egg in a piece of pan fried toast. Here's how I make mine. For ingredients, I'll use at least one egg, a piece of bread, butter or oil, and salt and pepper to taste. First things first, cutting out a hole in the toast. The easiest way is a cookie cutter, but in a pinch, something like a jar or a cup will do. The rim works just like a cookie cutter. Next, for the egg. Traditionally, you would just break this into the pan. However, I'm different. I like to beat the egg in a small bowl first because I prefer the egg all the way cooked. Plus, at this stage, it's easier to properly incorporate the salt and pepper. When getting down to it, I think there's two good options as far as food lube goes. Option one is to lightly butter the bread with softened butter or butter substitute before sticking it in a hot skillet. Second is to lightly grease the pan and then put the bread in there. I tend to go with the second option because butter burns pretty easily and oil gives me a better brown. The first option does make for a more even color though. After the bread, in goes the egg. If you're not scrambling the egg, you can wait till the bread browns on the one side and then flip the bread and crack the egg in. For me, I pour the scrambled egg in right after putting the bread in the pan. I flip when both are slightly browned on one side, and I take the toast out of the pan when the other side is lightly brown as well. Some might consider this a brunch sort of food, but for me, I think it's worth it for any day. I'd have the toast with sausage and either a nice cup of Yorkshire or a cup of coffee. If I was feeling really fancy, I'd make a fruit smoothie to balance out the savory flavors. Alternatively, I've also had just a couple of pieces of toast and some juice as a snack. About the painting in the back, I really love this one. There was one part where I really felt like I got into the groove. I love the colors and how the food almost looks whimsical. I made the whole heart-shaped because I love hearts and I do have a heart-shaped cookie cutter that I use sometimes, so it's very close to reality. I also put sausages on the side because I love to have meat with breakfast. In this case, I'm imagining them to be seasoned sausages that are pan fried. That's my recipe and painting done. Would you have this? For our second toast, I'm dedicating this to growth. May our setbacks only contribute to our betterment. A grilled cheese sandwich is a pan-fried sandwich where the filling is cheese. Here's how I make mine. For the ingredients, I use bread. I like mine on the thicker side. Cheese, usually Gouda, but for a classic poor man's sandwich, I use Kraft Singles or cheesy slices, depending on where you are. Optional is bacon that's been cooked and crumbled. And then lastly, butter or oil. For assembly, I like to have my ingredients at the ready because this part goes quickly. Also, I put the heat on low until I finish putting the sandwich together, then I crank it to a medium. Next, oil or butter goes into a hot skillet. Butter is harder to work with to me, so I usually stick to oil. I take the first slice of bread and place it in the middle of the pan. Then I take the cheese and completely cover the bread. Now, to make a plain grilled cheese, you can just add a piece of bread on top of this, but I like mine slightly zestier. After I covered the bread and cheese, I sprinkle in crumbled bacon on top, making sure to keep the bacon away from the edges. I usually use streaky bacon for this. I then layer more cheese on top of the bacon and then put the other slice of bread on top. For the bacon grilled cheese, or really any grilled cheese with filling, I make sure I flip the sandwich when both the bottom slice is brown on one side, but also when the cheese is sufficiently melted together at the edges. After that, I'm just waiting for the other side to brown. And then voila, grilled cheese sandwich. I consider this a snack food, but if I needed to make this a little more filling, I would have two of those with a snack bag of chips or crisps for my UK audience, and a glass of water or juice. About the painting in the back. I tried to mirror a technique I tried with my egg in the hole painting, and truthfully, I don't know how well I managed it. It looks like grilled cheese though, so I'm calling it done. I added specks of bacon to one and kept the other one plain. I also tried to add a piece of bacon on the side, but surprisingly, that is harder than it sounds, and I felt like I couldn't get the colors quite right, so I ended up scrapping that idea. And that's my recipe and painting done. Would you have this? For our last toast, let's toast to your health and mine. May our health be good, and if not, our rest as fitful as possible. Garlic bread is a piece of toasted bread that is pre-buttered with garlic butter. Here's how I make mine. For ingredients, I use bread. I like mine really thick. I usually get a tiger's bloom loaf. I make the garlic butter. And to make the garlic butter, I use butter or butter substitute sometimes, garlic or garlic granules, parsley, and a bit of salt. Lastly, sometimes I make them with cheese. I just stick with shredded mozzarella. To make this, I start with garlic butter. There's two ways I use depending on which ingredients I have or can get to, and also depending on my energy levels. The first is a little more fancy. First, I soften some butter. For the garlic, I mince bulbs in the food processor. Specifically, I want small chunks and not pulp, basically. I take the leftovers and put them in a jar. I cover the garlic with oil, and that's good for about a week. You can buy pre-peeled garlic, but I often forget and wind up spending entirely too long peeling myself. The trick is to cut the butt, and then the rest of the peel comes off easy, or at least easily enough. Back to the butter. I take some and put that in a small bowl. Then put in some garlic, usually about a spoonful. No real measurements here. I measure with my heart. And my heart loves garlic. I then add some parsley flakes and just a pinch of salt. Lastly, I mix all of that up and put aside. The second way is a little easier. I melt down a bit of butter, then I put in some garlic granules. Once again, no measurements, just passion. Some parsley flakes and a pinch of salt. I stir that real good, and that's ready to go. Both ways to make this are really tasty, but one tends to be a little quicker. For regular garlic bread, I like to butter and toast both sides of the slice of bread. I slather one side with my garlic butter concoction, and then in an oven, toaster oven, or air fryer, I toast that butter side up for about 5 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 200 degrees Celsius. Then I flip the toast and put more garlic butter on the other side and toast that for 5 minutes. For cheesy garlic bread, I prefer to stick with a softened butter approach because this penetrates the bread a little more as it cooks than the already melted butter, and I'm only going to butter one side. So I put the garlic butter on one side and make sure it's a thick layer. And I cook this in the same way as the first one. I usually just add maybe 2 minutes because of how heavy-handed I get with the butter. Side note, I do sometimes freeze the bread like this, covered in butter, and it could be cooked right out of the freezer. After the butter is nice and melted and toasty, I then add a layer of mozzarella on top and cook for an additional few minutes until the cheese is melted. This way, the bread on top is really soft and it has a nice crunch on the bottom to balance that out. I usually eat this alongside some pasta, usually with a red sauce, but if you wanted to have this as a snack, you could cut up a few pieces into strips after it's done and have them with a side of marinara sauce. About the painting in the back. I started this and felt really confident, and then I had some health complications that derailed me, and when I came back to it, I felt really unmotivated to finish. A little time passed, and I had more run-ins with my health that caused me to take an even bigger break. After a bit of recovery time, I did come back to it though, and was able to see it in a completely different light, which motivated me to finish. Despite the hurdles, I absolutely love how these turned out. The butter looks buttery and the cheese looks cheesy. I was tempted to try and draw a little garlic bulb, but I felt like that threw off the balance of the composition. And as you can see, I did try several things that didn't make it into the final piece. Also, I can't tell if you see the vision, but in the placement, I was thinking about the Pisces zodiac sign, and I thought it might be fun to one day do a food zodiac series. Let me know what you think about that. Alright, that is my recipe and painting done. Would you have this? Those were my New Year's toasts. You should tell me if you have any of your own. Thanks for bringing in the new year with me, and I hope there was cheers for every toast. If you made it this far, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.